Tonight I am here with 4 pillars of the New York metro area's arts and culture community, all of whom are at the helm of some of our largest cultural institutions. They have been supremely occupied trying to navigate leadership of their organizations through the lens of COVID-19 since the spring of 2020. Joining me now is Shanta Thake, who is the Aaron Krantz Chief Artistic Officer since last fall, right here at Lincoln Center for the Performing Arts, where she spearheads all artistic and programming activity. She was at the Public Theater prior to this job, where she oversaw the growth and development of Public Works, Mobile Unit, Under the Radar, Joe's Pub, the Shakespeare Initiative, and Public Forum. John Schreiber, he is the CEO and president of New Jersey Performing Arts Center, more commonly known as NJPAC. Under his leadership, NJPAC has created a 22-story luxury apartment building and announced plans to build a film studio, which is very, very exciting, with Lionsgate at Newark South Ward. Eduardo Vilaro began at Ballet Hispanico as a dancer and educator in 1985. He became artistic director in 2009, becoming, I think I've got this right, only the second person to lead the company since it was founded in 1970, correct? 1970. And then in 2015, he added the role of CEO to his job description as well. Welcome.
Thank you.
And Daniel Weiss is the president and chief executive officer of the Metropolitan Museum of Art since 2017. And for 2 years prior to that, he was the museum's president. He is an author, scholar of art history, and the former seasoned leader of both Haverford and Lafayette colleges. And most recently, Dan announced his intention to step down from the Met in June of 2023 when he will retire. It'll be very exciting to see what else is on the horizon after your retirement. Thank you all very much for being here with us tonight. So when we talk about rebuilding American cities, we hear a lot about banks, factories, subways, infrastructure. I'm curious collectively how you all feel about why the arts should be a part of that same conversation. And John, since you're sitting close to me, I'll let you take it.
Well, I think we're all anchor cultural institutions, and in Newark, which is an underserved city, the arts is a real catalyst for, we found it to be a catalyst for economic development. Governor Kane is here, and he is our founder. And when he, now I'm going to speak for you, gosh, God forbid. When Governor Kane first thought about the idea of a major performing arts center in New Jersey, he said, I want to locate it in Newark because the exponential value of having a facility like this in the city is going to reap tremendous benefits. And what he did was something that was really ingenious. He saved about 17 acres around the Arts Center for future development. And he learned that lesson as a student at Columbia in the late 50s when Lincoln Center was being built, and they didn't save land around it. So now, here at the Arts Center in Newark, we are building residential, we're building retail, we're building restaurants, we're building education community centers on this land that was saved in the earliest days of the imagination of the Arts Center. And so we're building a neighborhood, and that's what the arts can do. They can grow neighborhoods.
Yeah, that's really, really impressive.
Oh, thanks, Gov.
Haven't seen you in a long time. You want to weigh in?
Yeah, absolutely. I think beyond economic impact, which I think any of us who have these institutions can go to any restaurant surrounding our institutions and reap the thank yous from everyone that's working at every organization surrounding this space. But I think that beyond that, especially in this time, as we make the case for our cities and also for live performance, there is this thing that happens in live performance that it is a great desegregationist act. And as people have gotten even more further isolated in this time and are spending so much time, not just in their own neighborhood, which happens, but in their own apartment and not leaving. So that case to come out, meet your neighbors, meet people from other neighborhoods, and be able to rebuild a city that doesn't look just like you, but looks like all of New York, and be able to see that and be in storytelling situations together, not in debates together, but really experiencing the best of what humanity can create together, I think is deeply meaningful, especially coming out of this time, just getting people out of their homes and into a different kind of conversation with each other.
Have you found that to be a hard sell, or have your ideas been met with acceptance?
I have not found that to be a hard sell. I think it's a much easier sell to say, come out and see your favorite band than it is to say, come out and engage in a meaningful political debate in this country. And so I would say it's been really remarkable. The audiences that we've seen, the ages, multi-generational audiences coming to this campus. We did this enormous free festival this summer, hundreds of artists and shows, and just saw the effect of opening up the door and giving the opportunity to artists to express themselves and the audiences that they brought in, and it really, I think, reminded certainly all of us why we do this work and how important it is, and I think allows us to think into the future what's really, really possible, not just for Lincoln Center, but for New York City.
Eduardo?
Thank you. I think what's really important to me is what it's going to do if we don't build in the artists, what will happen to the conversations that have already been started about cultural relevance, about racial inequities, if we don't, because it is in the arts where we can really develop a dialogue that allows us to stay away from the social rhetoric that's going on. You walk into any theater, you walk into a dance performance, you have to remove yourself from who you are, what you believe, and try to go into the performance. And so I think it's really imperative that we have the arts when we rebuild. And the other reason why it's imperative is because BIPOC communities have for many years existed because of their arts, because of their traditions. Not only existed, but they've innovated because of that. The kids in the streets who were voguing, now we have Vogue as one of the major things. The hip hop artists, I could go down, and these were marginalized communities. So if we don't have the arts, what we lose is the richness of the diversity that we have. So I think it's really important to think even more grassroots. I know brick and mortar is important. We have it at Ballet Hispanico also. But how we're serving those communities that are in need of belonging and in need of connection, that's why we have to continue to have the arts as part of this rebuild.
And Dan, I'm thinking about the numbers of people that come through the Met on an annual basis. It's really quite extraordinary. Was it 7 million visitors a year?
Prior to COVID, there were 7 million a year. Yeah, things have changed a little bit since then, but that was what we were doing.
Yeah, talk to us about the role that you think the Met plays in this vibrant cultural life of New York City.
Well, I think the comments that other panelists have made are right on point, and as Eduardo said, I think there's no question that it's hard to imagine a more effective means of building community than bringing people together around a celebration and appreciation of what makes us human, which is what the arts are all about. And indeed, if one reflects on how do we actually build community, why do we even live in cities? Most of us don't live in cities because it's easy to get to work. We live in cities because we want something about community. And as a thought experiment, if we reflect on what this city would be like, this gleaming, magnificent city, if it didn't have any art and culture. No one would want to live here. That was the motivating factor in the 1860s when the founders of the Met, who were community citizens, these were people who worked in the city, they went to Paris and they saw the Louvre and they thought, yeah, that's what we need. We need one of those. That New York in the 1860s was a city full of opportunity and industry and burgeoning economy and not a great place to live because it didn't have a cultural life. So the Met is one of the great institutions of many in this city that help to remind us of the centrality of the arts to the well-being of our community. And I'll say one more thing about that. What COVID helped us to understand in ways that perhaps we had taken for granted was how vital and important that is in the lives of so many people. When we closed, boy, did people miss all of our places. And when we reopened, they had a newfound appreciation for why these places mean so much. So it's a little, all of us will probably say tonight that our institutions are a little stronger than they were before because we learned that and we have built on that.
It's quite extraordinary what you were able to do. You shut down for 5 months, right? And you were able to keep everyone on payroll?
We were. Our goal was to do the very best we could. Of course, we knew when we made the decision to close, I remember that moment vividly, I thought, we may be closed for like 3 weeks. It could be that long. And 5.5 months later, we reopened. We had lost nearly $150 million in revenue. But we did our very best to support our staff through that process. And, everyone struggled with that. It was not easy, but we were lucky to get through it.
John, tell me about how your work was transformed and the impact of COVID on your mission.
Well, when we had to shut down because of COVID, within 10 days we were back up again. Not live, of course, because we couldn't be, but we had never done distance learning. We'd never done any amount of virtual programming. And my head of education said to me, we need to be present with education programs. And so we took our teaching artists and we started delivering virtual programming to our kids. And that was a lifeline for those kids. And then George Floyd got murdered, and we started doing virtual programming relative to social justice that resonated in our community and even beyond our community. During pandemic, we did over 500 events virtually, and all of a sudden we were talking to people and reaching people that we never would have reached prior. It was a terrible, terrible tragedy, what we've all been through, but it was a way for us to understand what our usefulness might be, and we sort of reinvented ourselves during COVID, and we had to terminate, and we all took pay cuts and furloughs, and it was dreadful, but there was such a sense of esprit de corps among us to get the work out there for the people who were, like all of us were, stuck at home. So it was really transformational.
You talk about reaching people, or at least attempting to reach people you'd never reached before. I can only imagine the new kind of collaboration that grew out of that. Did you find that with
totally.
institutions you worked with?
We did one program. We had 60 culturals around the country, and we invited folks to watch the documentary Good Trouble about John Lewis. And these culturals participated, and we had a single night where 14,000 people tuned in live to listen to the director and Lonnie Bunch from the Smithsonian and Khalil Muhammad from Harvard Kennedy School talking about the life and influence of John Lewis. That wouldn't have happened if we weren't in this unique circumstance, right? So it gave, I think, many of us an opportunity to come together in ways we never could have guessed.
I know that is true in the dance community because I had an opportunity to talk with the two of you before we started here tonight. Help us understand some of the new partnerships that have grown out of the challenges of life after COVID.
Well, I received a call from Robert Battle at Ailey, and he said, the artistic directors are coming together of the major dance companies, and we need you to be part of this group. And I did, and it was really... This has never happened before, certainly, while I've been a director here, that we're having these dialogues on a weekly basis. We would come together and just talk about how are we saving dance. That was the topic. How are we going to make sure it's here when we're ready to come back? How are we going to come back? And then we had, as you mentioned, George Floyd and all those changes. And all those very important movements. And so we had a voice. We took the opportunity to have the voice from the dance perspective because there's so many young dancers and to let them know the information. Towards the end of, well, I can't say the end of the pandemic, towards the end of the difficult period, we decided we have to give back. So how are we going to do that? And it was through dance. So we put a program together and took it to Lincoln Center and said we'd love to do this band festival. New York's 5 major dance companies dancing for the first time ever together on the same stage. It's never happened.
Fabulous. And Shanta, what was your reaction when Eduardo pitched you?
You know, I was
dance companies coming for the first time.
I was the recipient of this amazing festival because I came in after it had already happened the year before I got here, the summer before I got here. And I think, so my only very easy job was to beg to do it again. and luckily they said yes. And at the end of this year, you know, it was announced from stage that we'll do it again this coming summer. And so it's truly, I think, one of those great beacons of hope and life. And you see, you know, the audiences for these dance companies that have perhaps never seen some of these other great companies in their own city, and being able to see that all for one night. And this year, actually, Lincoln Center then commissioned a new work that all of the companies danced together. So dancers from each of the companies participated in a new work, which was just a stunning next step. And we'll see what happens this coming year. But I think this idea of being in a space where none of us have the answers, and you can really break down those walls of expertise and turn to your colleagues and say, well, what are you doing, without that same pride getting in the way of perhaps some of those conversations that they happen. And I think one of the things that really shifted for Lincoln Center in this time was, of course, we're 11 organizations on campus. And so I think certainly those walls really came down during this time, and being able to turn to one another and ask these questions, and having our boards talk to one another, and all of the things that come with really making sure we're serving the city. The other big partnerships that happened for us was with the city itself, and with food banks and blood drives, naturalization ceremonies, all these things that really come understanding our privilege of having all of this space in a city like New York, and how can we turn that over in a different kind of way. So how do we not only continue to be a leading cultural center, but also a civic cultural center, and really tied to basic needs of our city, at the same time offering what we would also consider a basic need of great culture, and being able to offer both of those with our hands wide open.
So it sounds like reimagination is sort of embedded into your job title as an artistic director of Lincoln Center. That right? You said
yes,
we don't have all
I think all of us, yes. We're in the imagination business. Absolutely.
And Dan, you talked about maybe it was hard to imagine when we were going through the most challenging days of COVID that your institution would end up being stronger because of everything it had to go through. Help us understand what you think has accrued as a result of that.
Well, I think at the center of that was deep and careful reflection about our mission, and how do we actually fulfill our mission at a time of maximum challenge. Being closed, for example, how do we reach people and connect them to our collections and our programs? And so it required us to dig down a little bit deeper into reflecting on delivering something that is not easy to deliver. And our staff, who are brilliant, were committed in so many different ways to think around that problem. So we developed, like all of us did, virtual programming that is now part of our permanent repertoire of things that we offer. Every exhibition that opens, we normally will have several hundred people come and have a glass of wine and see the collection. We now have 30 to 40,000 people who come virtually at every opening from all over the world as a routine part of how we engage audiences. So we're a stronger institution because we had a chance to reflect on what really matters, what doesn't matter as much. We were reaffirmed in our belief that the work we do is important because the world told us how much it mattered to them. That it's one thing to take that for granted, it's quite another to come face to face with the ways in which what you do can change the lives of people around you. And we had to be smarter about resources and finances and decision making and all kinds of things because we had no choice. But we always talk about challenges being opportunities, but indeed I think this was. At the Met, at the center of that, was a deeper understanding of what is in the center of all the different things that we do most important, and how do we make sure we extend that opportunity in new ways. And this we did.
And tell me what happened on the diversity and equity front.
Well, there too, I think that was, we all know what a terrible moment that was in America as we saw the murder of George Floyd and then Breonna Taylor and all that followed. I also recognized, and I give myself some credit for this, that this was a huge window of opportunity for us. Everyone at the Met and every other institution I've ever worked has always said it's very important for us to advance these goals. This would be great. Of course, we have other things we have to do first, but we're going to get to that, and that matters. No longer was that the case. that it was so present for us. We needed to jumpstart significant change to address issues that are as old as our own country, to connect audiences and to treat people more equitably, to open up our institution in ways that fulfilled our mission more fully. And so we put together a list of commitments. In the first instance, I thought 10 commitments sounded right. And I started writing them down, and it turned out to be 13 commitments. And because I felt so strongly we needed to jumpstart these initiatives right now, the board was behind us, the staff was behind, everybody thought this was an important thing to do, that I said if we don't fulfill these at the end of the first year, I should be fired. And it was a little bit of a rhetorical gesture, but I meant it. And the idea was we own these goals, we're going to deliver them, with the idea that before that window closes and everybody gets back to business where they had been before, our institution will change. And if we have enough trajectory around change, then the next set of objectives, be after the commitments, will help us to sustain and integrate, as it were, all those initiatives throughout the institution. And that is what has happened. So I'm very proud of that. We all have seen what has happened since. We're now a polarized country on these issues like we were everything else. But that window was a dreadful time, but it also was a very interesting, rich opportunity for all of us to reflect on what it means to live in a society that's truly pluralistic. And how do we do better?
Eduardo, I saw you trying to jump in, because as someone who runs a Latinx organization, talk to us about the role you think Ballet Hispanico should be playing.
Well, I think what I wanted to say was the flip side of this. For an organization that is a dance company, it is a Latina dance company, the pandemic was a different kind of opportunity because we were being seen more, sadly. So we were being asked to be at the table and lead the discussions about how to be better about the diversity issue, which was, well, we've been here all this time, 52 years. Now you ask me? So that in itself isn't interesting. And I just wanted to bring that in because sometimes we look at things from one perspective. And so for us, it was really about taking the reins and saying, yes, we've been doing it. This incredible organization that was started by Tina Ramirez, who we just lost in September, has provided this community, all communities, even in New York City, not even, but in New York City, the opportunity for kids who don't see themselves fit into the ballet world, who don't see themselves reflected in the work. So that's what we've been doing. So it was incredible. And one of the wonderful things is we tripled our audience online, which, you try to think of as a small organization. How do we do that? And sadly, the pandemic gave us that opportunity and developed those roles. And so as we move on, knowing that we've been invited to the table, and now we have to set the table. And so that is what Ballet Hispanico is going to continue to be a leader in these discussions of what the community needs as Latinx people and in this city, and also how we move that discussion beyond just our doors. How do we invite everyone to be part of that cultural dialogue?
And John, that is certainly something that you've wrestled with, how to keep the work you're doing relevant. Help us better understand what you're trying to target right now to make your institutions places for everybody.
One has to be very intentional about that in order to succeed. So we have an education program that reaches tens of thousands of kids and families every year. We have a community engagement unit that does 250 free community events throughout Greater Newark every season. We have advisory councils among community members across different categories. Internally on our staff, we have a variety of ERGs. We have to keep asking, we have to keep listening, and by doing that, we are able to create initiatives and programs that are truly useful and meaningful to the people we serve. And that's the beauty of being an anchor cultural institution in an underserved community, because anything is possible. And if the Arts Center can't do it, we'll find a collaborator who can do it, or we try to be as effective as we can be based on what we know how to do and based on the connectivity that the Arts Center has within our community. So this is dynamic work. It's never ending, and it's what makes it so much fun. Table stakes to us is putting on X hundred shows a year, engaging authentically and usefully and effectively with community. That's what this work is all about, really.
And as you're doing that, don't you risk alienating longtime patrons of your organizations when you try to think outside the box and create works of art that might be disturbing and challenging? And
our founder's in the house, and so far no complaints as far as I can tell. So, but it's up to us as leaders to lead our volunteer leaders as far as vision is concerned. And if we can articulate a vision that is a truly effective and useful and creative vision, our volunteers will come along, I think.
Shanta, I see you nodding in agreement.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, everything that John said, I think it resonates so much in terms of those deep conversations and really understanding, I think finding, if you don't actually know who your audience is, you can make a lot of assumptions and target those assumptions. And instead, I think being in really meaningful dialogue about just, making the table wider, making it bigger, having more people. There's a lot of people that feel very at home at Lincoln Center. And then there are millions of others who have never stepped foot onto campus. And how can we hold on to the folks that have supported us through the toughest of times and also say, don't you want the rest of New York to have what you have here? And the answer is always yes. Of course, our supporters, the people that have walked along Lincoln Center, want to see the future success of the arts of Lincoln Center, of this cultural beacon, thrive, and they want that for their city. And I think just being able to have that meaningful conversation and an understanding that this is a space that really, it does belong to New York City. And so what does that mean? It means that we really have to be very intentional about what kind of performances we have, who's currently not coming on campus, and how do we continue to open those doors and then make sure people have an experience that feels like it elevates their experience of being in New York, and that they feel a part of this great city and not separate from.
I know you were quoted as saying that almost with every performance at the Lincoln Center, you're always thinking to yourself, how do you rebuild the house every night? Yeah. And I'm curious, you don't have to name names here, but what kind of blowback have you gotten when you try to reach beyond?
I would love to name names.
At Lincoln Center.
We're waiting for them.
You sure? How badly do you need your job?
Look into the camera.
Yes, exactly. No. I think it's, I think with anything new, and we are making a lot of significant changes. We hung a 10-foot disco ball over the fountain this summer. So I think with anything that are large-scale changes, and we really are committed to changing who feels welcome at Lincoln Center, there's going to be people that are discomfited by that, and that's okay. Discomfort is part of the work too, and I think, I'm excited by it. I think any time that you can have that conversation and begin to unpack for people why they feel comfortable at Lincoln Center and why wouldn't you want to extend that to other people is a great conversation to be in. And so I feel like that when I'm most successful, that's the kind of conversation I'm in. And I love it. But I definitely am in it a lot. And it's fascinating to me. And I think it's definitely part of the job, but it's very fulfilling. And I think for everyone that is sort of moving through that discomfort, I'm seeing a lot of other people move out of discomfort and start to feel comfortable at Lincoln Center for the first time. And that's a beautiful, beautiful thing. So it's part of the work, and it changes all the time. The community's changing all the time. The conversation's changing all the time. And we get to be a part of that and really try to, and I think in terms of rebuilding the house, this is when you started Ballet from the beginning. You really are thinking through what's the story I need to tell right now, and you're pulling the people together, and you have to do this create a new thing. It's so overwhelming, and that's the work that we're all in all the time. And you just know that sometimes what's going to be on the other side of that is going to be transformative, and you just have to keep pushing to get there. And it's just a beautiful field to be working in all the time.
I see a lot of nodding in agreement here. John, you jump in, and I know Eduardo and Dan also have something to add.
I think sort of major performing arts institutions like Lincoln Center or the Met or even us in New Jersey at NJPAC, there's a feeling among certain people that is not unusual. That is, this is not a place for me. This is not a place that is welcoming to me, right? So our job every day is to disprove that. This is a place for you. This is a place where you're going to have a heightened experience. You're going to be among people you know and people you don't know. You're going to have a life enhancing opportunity to feel better and to feel different. And our job is to eliminate those barriers, that exist among folks who don't feel like institutions like ours are welcoming. When I think of Lincoln Center Out of Doors, which has been around for a long time, that was a tremendous and continues to be a tremendous way to bring the city together. We do similar stuff at the Arts Center. We have concerts in the summer where several thousand people will join. A cross-section of folks enjoying each other and enjoying the entertainment and enjoying the culture. So this is how we are uniquely placed as culturals, and we're all thinking differently about that these days, I think.
Anne?
I would just add very briefly that I think what makes the arts culture so vibrant and interesting is it is sometimes challenging, and I would distinguish between welcoming people and making them comfortable. And if we can help people understand that you're welcome here, we want you here, and you're going to be challenged sometimes. That's how we learn. It's how we see things we don't understand and that are new to us. That is the whole galvanizing process of engaging with the arts in new and exciting ways. I think that's important, rather than having people feel that I'm going to come, I need to be welcome, I need to be comfortable, I need to see stuff I like. And the Met is changing that in all kinds of ways, and criticism is celebrated. It's perfectly okay to have a voice and to find things that are objectionable. That's how we learn from each other.
Eduardo?
Yes, I'm listening to all these great minds, and I love that you call this culturals. Mm-hmm. I'm seeing a whole outfit for us, and a movie
with sneaker line that we're very excited about.
Just wanted to put that out. We're still being creative. So I'm an arts organization that, for us, it's about defending the community in ways of giving them access that they don't have or don't feel that an institution that doesn't invite them in, I'll give them that, right? And so we've been doing the work of access, in particular with education. And we still raise the voices of the need for arts education, arts period, in our communities, in our schools. And so we continue to be that bridge. Sometimes we're on tour currently, so we go into these many communities, and this is the first time a young child sees someone who looks like them on stage. And that's the power. That's the powerful tool of representation and why it's so important for us. So for Ballet Hispanico, it's not so much about comfort. It's about what you said earlier, the discomfort that someone might feel in a work that we do that might point a discrepancy out, or that might not be so. That is our work. Our artistic work is to push the conversation from the point of view of a brown organization.
And I just wanted to give you all the opportunity in the couple minutes we have left just to express on a personal level what it has been like for you to be part of this rich cultural heritage in your individual community. I think you have some of the most wonderful jobs that anyone could ever have. It must be such a privilege for all of you. I don't know who wants to jump in first.
Yeah, I'll start just because I think that's exactly, to me, that's the word. It's such a privilege to be in this spot, in this space. I mean, Lincoln Center, at this time, this real opportunity to look at a city in need, this moment of being on the brink of whatever comes next. And I tell my staff, I tell any student group I'm with, keep a journal, because the decisions you make right now are shaping the future of the landscape of the arts in America. And I don't think that's an overstatement, and so we take them very seriously. We do them in community with one another. And we do them understanding that we have to be humbled by this responsibility, because it's such an opportunity, and it's such an incredible city. And what emerges, I think, will live in the hearts and minds of the artists that are creating right now. And so if we can get out of our own way, get out of their way, and turn over the stage in a way that allows that work to really shine, and for those communities to really be reflected in a meaningful way, we really can create a new kind of city that we will all have a different kind of stake in.
Eduardo?
I'm excited. I'm excited by this generation that confuses me, but is so ready to stand and be advocates at all times for each other and for communities. And we have to learn how to really leverage that beautiful power with that this generation is bringing forward, because I have already seen them moving the needle in the dance field, and how we look at dance, and how we decolonize a lot of the ways we train, a lot of the ways. So I'm very excited that I can be part of that discussion and lead my community through some of them, through this beautiful art form that I love, which is dance.
Dan?
Well, to be sure, the last few years have been extraordinarily challenging to all of us, but even on the worst of days, I felt enormously privileged to be part of this world that we're in. And as I reflect on that, that's because I think the arts provide us with perhaps the best chance we have of strengthening our community, enhancing empathy, and helping us to understand what it means to be part of a larger narrative than just ourselves. I have never met anyone who read an op-ed in the New York Times and decided to change their point of view about anything. But to engage in a cultural experience that is transformative, that moves people intellectually and emotionally, that somehow offers them a perspective that helps them to understand the world is bigger, richer, and more complicated than they think it is, even if they don't have an answer, but they come away with, oh, wow, that was interesting. We do more work to advance the larger goals of our community through art than I think most people realize. And facing the existential question, as you were saying before, you guys were talking about whether we can bring ballet back, like what's going to after COVID. To understand the value of what we bring that's the greatest privilege of all.
John, you get the last word.
Gosh, boy, this is a rough,
the best
crew
position to
follow,
be in
man,
after all these illustrious.
But I will tell you, I left Haverford College in 1976, so I missed.
Very proud of you.
And so were my parents, Yeah. No, it's a gift to be able to do this work, and to do this work with community in mind, for starters, is the greatest gift. And I think, again, I look at Governor Kane. When you decided to place the New Jersey Performing Arts Center in Newark, you were making a statement. And this place has been a North Star for Newarkers and folks who aren't Newarkers for years and years and years, providing opportunities for education, for cultural literacy, for all sorts of things. And the idea that everyone feels welcome at our place is sort of job one for us. Sometimes the conversations are difficult, sometimes the art is difficult, but it's an elevated experience for anybody to sit in an audience and appreciate art, to appreciate great art. And as you were saying before, many of the constituents we serve, especially the kids, have never seen a live performance before. And that can be transformative for them. So every day I sort of wake up really sort of so lucky to be able to advance this work. And I never know day to day how the work will advance. And that's the beauty part. Nothing's predictable.
That is for sure. Well, Governor, may others follow your lead. We owe you a debt of gratitude. And I know I speak for all of you who are joining us here tonight. We are so deeply grateful for your contributions to the arts and culture scene in your respective great cities. And we thank you very, very much for the impact you have and how you lift all of us in the process.
Thank you.